Now welcoming on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. It's the first episode of a segment here, Coach's Corner. We've got Justin Smith with us. Justin is the head golf coach for the Minnesota Golden Gophers men's program. Justin, thank you for joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun. And well, first of all, introduce yourselves in the sense of you played for the Gophers as well. So talk to the viewers and listeners about your experience and then your resume as a player for the Gophers too.
Geez, yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think this is going to be an awesome experience. Like I said, whenever we get to talk about what we're so passionate about from the professional standpoint, right? This is as much fun as we can ever have. So thanks for inviting me to do this, and thanks for Second Swing and all their support of our program. But yeah, so I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally, kind of from a small town just north of Pittsburgh, and came here in fall of 2000. Was offered an opportunity to be on the team at Minnesota, and Brad James and John Means were my two coaches that kind of got me started here. So we were fortunate to do some fun things. We won a couple Big Ten championships as a team, won a national championship in 2002. I was fortunate to have some great teammates along the way to kind of help elevate us to that. And played professional golf for 8 years, 4 years on the Hooters Tour, and then 4 years on the Korn Ferry. But then it was the Nationwide Tour. So that tour's changed sponsors a few times through the years, so gets a little confusing there. But and now it's crazy to think I'm in my 11th year coaching total. It's 5 years as assistant coach under John Carlson, and then 5 years head coach here. And no question, like the burning passion is to elevate this program to a point where we just saw down in Puerto Rico we could try to contend with some of the big blue bloods down south. So that's a fun challenge, especially this time of year.
So that's gonna be one thing we're gonna hit on in this kind of series is sort of this the test that you guys have, maybe an additional test, so to speak, that you guys have as a obviously northern climate. This is a perfect day to talk about that with as the morning of we're recording here, it's minus 20 degrees ish depending on exactly where you're at in the Twin Cities area. But in this particular segment, I wanted to talk about how things have progressed tech-wise, space-wise for you guys in terms of, because you have the perfect lens to look through and speak through this as a former player in the early 2000s and how things have changed for the program from then to now. So starting back, can you just kind of give us what the typical practice day would look like in kind of the cold weather months when you were playing, and then we'll kind of contrast that to what it looks like now for players, given that, the technology, launch monitors, that whole thing. What did you guys do back in the day to keep the swing in form, keep yourselves kind of, your swing ready for when those spring competitions came around, you guys had to compete?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it could be any more possibly different, right?
Right.
25 years ago to kind of what it is today, and the advances of where college golf programs are, and kind of the pioneers of the programs have kind of elevated it through the years. But yeah, we were a group of guys from all over the world. We had players from Australia, from Sweden, Scotland, myself from Pittsburgh, and then obviously Minnesota kids. And Goodrich Golf Dome out in White Bear Lake was our home. And we were able to, our coaches would set it up to where we could hit unlimited balls kind of anytime we wanted to. And we would do a lot of swing work. This isn't, set up the tripod with the iPhone, right? This is like the camcorder up on the shoulder, wheel in the TV, put the video like VCR cassette into the VCR, and kind of then wait for it to load and try to rewind and find your swing. And so, it was a lot of patience, no question, but it's all we knew. And fortunately, we had two coaches that knew the golf swing pretty well. And I didn't have a swing coach back home. I think now, right, that's something that's changed a lot.
Yeah.
These players, these juniors, are so much more educated and knowledgeable with swing coaches and technology than we ever were. But sometimes that can work to your advantage, and you can really own your game, and that's something we talk about with our players. So, but all we had was Goodrich Golf Dome. We had an unlimited amount of balls that you could hit 60 yards in the back of a dome.
Okay.
And there was these panels, and so they were there was these little divides and little seams in the back of a dome. Anybody that's been to Braemar or Goodrich or any of those around the Twin Cities, right? That's kind of what it is. So it was just about, can I hit that panel? How many times in a row can I hit that panel? And do a little swing work on the side and learn about your golf swing. So we had to get crazy creative. And fortunately, we had a group that was pretty self-motivated. So we're kind of this idea of like, as long as we have some clubs and balls and a place to hit and make a full swing, like we can figure it out. And
Yeah.
obviously nowadays, right, like that's the type of players we still want. That's the type of environment we still want to create. But we are so fortunate with the support of our community and families and donors and our athletic department to be able to provide the latest and greatest, trying to be on the cutting edge to help our players improve with the TrackMans and the GC
Yep.
quads. And we're just talking about TrackMan.io and the hitting bays and simulators, the putt view systems that we have to help our players read greens and kind of learn all that stuff. So that's where college golf is, and that's where we have to go. And as a coach, like I feel responsible, like we got to make sure we have everything what our players need, while still reminding them sometimes that, you know, just kind of digging it out of the dirt is a good way to improve at the same time.
Right. I mean, after all, you guys won a national championship, kind of using that old method. Going back to the video element from back in the day, I'm just very curious about this now. So you mentioned, you know, you'd bring the camcorder out and you'd you'd literally wheeling in like a TV screen type of thing, or is that what it was like?
Yeah, you know,
or,
like on the what is it on elementary school?
yeah,
right?
oh,
When
that's
you
what
get
I'm
movie day.
thinking of. Is like
there was a
like
there was a
third grade
part
class.
to that.
It's like
yeah.
substitute teachers like, all right, we're gonna play a video for you today.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you wheel in the cart with the big TV.
Yeah,
that's exactly what
it
it's like.
wasn't too far removed from that. I promise. Yeah,
That's awesome. So, in terms of like, you guys are literally like putting in the tape and like helping each other with like a swing thought or or a swing, you know, the takeaway or the downswing. Is that really what was going on there?
Well, and you can't imagine, right? I think what slow mo is now to be able to like see the club head
and then you
go,
can like
right?
draw lines and stuff on
in the
it,
HD, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just a blob probably. And so like at the end of the day, like who knows what I was even looking for? I was just trusting my coach to say, yeah, it looks like the club's on plane and you know, it's where it needs to be at the top of the swing. But it was really just ball flight. And I tell our players today, it's like you have to be able to understand what your ball flight's doing and why that's happening. And equipment obviously has just kind of gone crazy as well in the last 25 years, you know, obviously. So how the golf ball and the clubs and what they're meant to do, right, is so much different than it was then. So, but that was kind of what we had. And I think it helped really build the IQ of a player and the creativity and the feel of a player, where a lot of times now, right, there's a lot of one-dimensional aspects to it. You know, ball, launch it high, spin it low, ball goes straight, clubs go straight. Awesome stuff, right? It allows me to still have a ton of enjoyment to play the game. But yeah, that's kind of all we had. And we kind of had to lean on each other, or just the eyeball test, right? Or it just didn't have the technology nearly what you can analyze your swing with now.
Was there a moment, I'm curious now, is like, you know, I know, again, we're going to dedicate a segment to this conversation, but when you won the national championship, were you like talking to other, you know, and talking with other other teams, other players on Southern schools, and it's like, this is how we practiced the last 3 months. we were hitting in a dome indoors. We wheeled in our, you know, I mean, was that ever a conversation? I'm just curious if they were like, oh, how did you guys even practice?
Well, I think if I remember right, I think we ended up, Georgia Tech took second to us that year, and I think we ended up beating them by 4. But there are players on that team now that I've come across in the last few years, whatnot. They still kind of go, I have no idea how you guys did that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I probably don't either, but it doesn't matter, right? You did it. And, you know, we had a great group of guys and great coaches that helped us get there. And, but I do think that you got to use it to your advantage. You know, if you have a group that says, you know what? Yeah. Like, you know, kind of like today, right? It's really cold. Okay. Like nobody likes it. I don't care where you're from. But when you got a group that goes, you know what, like we're going to kind of flip this on its head and use it to our advantage. Nobody's giving us a chance. Nobody's giving us a hope that we can go perform. You know, you get a group that believes, right? That belief is so powerful. And so that's something that we try to instill here now with a group that we proved a little bit by closing the gap a little bit with our recent tournament performance in Puerto Rico. But that's kind of the X factor that we had to lean on. We weren't going to be able to lean on, hey, we're playing the same amount of golf holes, or, you know, we've got the chipping greens and the short game areas. You know, we just had to kind of out-believe, and I think that still is as powerful today as it was, you know, way back in the day.
Yeah, I suppose there's a certain, it kind of goes with this winter I don't want to say disadvantage, because I know you kind of try to turn that into something that's actually an advantage mentally for you guys, but there's certainly an element of that where you have to come together and believe as a team a little bit more than maybe other schools are required to. So now in the modern day, what type of, you talked about kind of what the practice would look like for you guys, or how you guys would improve on your game in the cold months back in the day. You hinted at some of the stuff that you guys have available now to you, but what does it look like for a player now? Let's say, whether it's today, kind of in season practice, or maybe it's the out of season. What do the players have available at their today to use versus before?
And I think the one thing that I didn't hit on yet, that I think is for us, what we really dive into as coaches, our assistant coach and I really take a look at, especially fresh off a tournament, off a competition, or any sort of rounds, is kind of our stats program. I mean, that's something that's evolved tremendously. And just in the last few years, in my opinion, to some stats programs that are awesome. For someone like myself, sometimes hard to understand and hard to find those key areas. Like, okay, if I'm trying to get my strokes gained from, 0 to starting to gain strokes, right? Like, how do I do it? Where am I going to spend my time? Like, what are those areas of the game? And so, obviously 20 years ago, like, it was fairways, greens, how many putts, and then kind of go with it.
You're bringing out your notebook and your tally and stuff.
Yeah. But now, like, our team uses this Clip software, and so Clipped is very instrumental in college golf for a lot of different reasons too. But it's more of the stats deal, and so our players input all their data. They can input all their practice data that they're gaining, kind of learning from, and then it kind of spits out this simple idea of what to work on. And you're trusting that their data is accurate that they're inputting, and then the system kind of does it for you and tells you the different areas. So, for instance, I just saw it on social media this morning. They're talking about Ludwig and kind of his strokes gained, or his shot quality with his approach. I guess his iron play was off the charts yesterday, or probably the whole week for that matter. Right? You can't win if it's if it's not. But that's the same stuff our players do and use, and for us as coaches, right, it helps really develop practice plans, like really specifically to a 140 to 180 approach, or 75 to 100 wedges, right, and putting from 3 to 8 feet, they're really struggling, or from speed putting from 35 feet now. So to really kind of make sure that when we have our players in that time slot that we have them, that we're really purposeful. This Clip program has just kind of changed the game for us in a lot of ways to make it really exact and really simple.
Yeah, to a similar, in a similar vein, I've been using that Arccos app, which it's close, not exactly what you guys do. I know there's probably a little bit further detail to what you guys are using, but there, it kind of gives you your relative strokes gained in a sense. It's not probably a perfect mathematical system, but it tells me, hey, in this round, GPS tracks where your shots were, and it's like, oh, you drove the ball really well this round, or your wedge game was below your average, right? And so it kind of in that sense tells you, okay, here's what your strengths are as a X handicap compared to other X handicaps. But it's really cool to get that perspective as well, because that's a whole nother I guess element of this. I kind of came into this thinking, okay, let's launch monitors and you mentioned Putt View and the different indoor systems you guys have now, but the stat tracking is another piece that back in the day it was probably very manual. It's like, hey, your fairway, or greens and regulation, that type of thing. You could maybe do a distance element to it if you wanted to actually out on the golf course track it that way. But this way there's so many avenues to, and like you said, it just opens up exactly what a player needs to do for practice. Like, okay, my mid iron game was poor the last few weeks, and let's work on those.
Yeah. So to give you an example, right? We're Monday today. We've got team practices all week. We got workouts in the morning. We're gonna head on the weekend down to South Carolina to do a training trip. Like, we get 20 hours with our guys, and so I think, obviously, do we have the technology and facility to let them develop the TrackMans, the quads, the Putt Views? Just as simple as this, I think it's Putt Aim or something, this laser thing that I actually, got the idea and off, you guys here at Second Swing for it. But just to be able to find a straight putt, and you're not drawing chalk lines on a greens, and you're not ruining greens, and the superintendent's getting mad, but just be able to find that zero, that straight putt, like having all these things at the fingertips of our players. They don't all have to use it at the same time. They don't all have to use it at all, but like they'll find their little areas that they're most productive with. But when we have 20 hours when it comes to workouts, practices, competitions, whatever, we have to be, when you dial it all back, you probably have 8 to 10 hours of practice time a week. So we have to be really efficient. We have to make sure they're really purposeful with it. And so these stats programs, I think, are crucial to be able to help us do that.
Because I think there's certainly an element too, I'm sure, for you guys of when it actually does get, you can go outside on the golf course. I know we were just talking at the weather forecast, and it's like, hey, we got 44 degrees for a high next week. Yeah, that's pretty sweet, right, for us in February. But when it's time to get out on the golf course, there's also an element of tracking the performance there. When you even play a practice round somewhere or find a course up here somewhere that's open, you can go. That is all on that software, I'm sure, too. So
correct.
It all calculates and helps you make decisions as a coach too, I imagine, through that process.
When we know we're coming to a certain type of course that either more demanding off the tee or less demanding off the tee, and then the green complexes are a little flatter, a little more undulating. Yeah, we definitely can lean on these stats to understand like what 4 or 5 players might fit the golf course better. So
yeah, that's fascinating. That's I didn't even. Again, this is a realm I didn't even think of in terms of the tech advancements, so to speak. That it helps you as a coach a lot instead of. I imagine back in the day, you had scoring averages and you had things like that. You could maybe eyeball, what a player might be better fit for on a course, but to have the actual data there is certainly a nice boost. I imagine.
I think as a coach, like there's always the element, like we're so fortunate in our sport, kind of like a swimming or a track and field for that matter, but. The numbers are the numbers, right? You just go shoot the numbers, and our top players that outperform, right? They're never in a position where they're like, well, am I going to go to this tournament? Am I not going to go?
Yeah.
The guys are kind of that 4, 5, 6, 7 range, right? There's where the stroke averages really start coming closer together. There is a little bit of the coaching aspect on our end of just kind of that data of fit of golf course, the trends, the recent kind of tournament or two. What parts of the game is going to be required to be, really elite coming up for a stretch that, you can kind of dive into. So there's a lot more at our fingertips as coaches.
Yeah.
Certainly makes my head spin at times. But at the same time, we can still just always go to like, hey, go shoot the scores. And our best 4 or 5 stroke averages, like they're going to play. And but we do have the ability to kind of take such a deeper dive now.
What is it? What was the Arnold Palmer quote? Something about golf is it's deceptively simple and endlessly complicated.
Yeah.
I think is what he called it.
Yeah.
And in a sense, this is kind of it, where it's like, we have all these new tech features and launch monitors and indoor putting greens and putt view, putt aim, all these things you can use. But at the end of the day, you got to shoot a score. And so that's ultimately how you shoot your 70 or 69 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's what matters. And so, that's. Kind of in wrapping up here, I wanted to just get like the perspective on hitting golf shots, because we hinted on it a little bit, but seeing ball flight and feel of golf shots and ultimately how the ball is flying is that almost in a way removed from today with the indoor facilities and stuff, or are you still making sure to get that part of it as well in hand with the new tech and the TrackMans and things like that?
Yeah, no, I think the other thing that partners with the Clip deals, right? There's a lot of combines, there's a lot of kind of tests, competitions that they can do to test their skills, distance control, dispersion, all those kind of things throughout the bag that you can really kind of get a gauge of how they're performing and how sharp they are. We do spend a lot of time in our practices of just competing, and it's really the hardest thing I think to do indoors, non-golf course kind of access to this time of year is that competition piece of trying to get those juices flowing. We've tried to find, our assistant coach does an incredible job at it, of trying to find these avenues to get those feelings going with our players. And it's not that we're putting anything on the line. It's, we got a group that's really prideful.
Yeah.
And they don't like to lose to each other.
Yeah.
Even though, hey, they know they need each other to perform, to let this team kind of play, hopefully deep into May, as best we can. But that's kind of a little bit another X factor that we use in the technology we have, in the stat service we have. Like, it helps us organize this, and really kind of put it on them. And team finishing drills, like where they all have to make a 6-footer at the end of practice, all go through it. Like, who's the anchor, who's the guy that's got to when the first 8 have made it, who's that 9th guy. Those are the kind of things I think still way out. And it doesn't matter what facility you're in. It doesn't matter what it looks like or whatever. It's like those kind of things still can elevate a team as much as the technology. But there's no question that for their individual development, stuff they're doing on their own time, we could not get to where we want to go without all this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate to have it.
Yeah, it's really cool to see just how the game, the industry really has kind of evolved and has taken the technology by its horns and kind of golfized it, if you will.
Yeah.
So, well, Justin, thank you for the time. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Again, it certainly has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been fun to see how it's kind of been implemented for the Gophers as well, and how you guys are using it, and obviously seeing some good results here early in the 2025. So,
yeah. Off to a decent start. We went down in Puerto Rico and hung with some of those some blue bloods down there. So we'll keep finding ways to inch closer and got to overtake them eventually. But thanks to everyone in Second Swing. We obviously lean on you all a lot to help us with what's latest and greatest out there and what's working and how we can kind of bring that into our facility. So more to come, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Justin, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.